after college, I got into the publishing industry and worked in publishing for a number of years. I owned a college media marketing company that had done a deal with a .com company based in Texas, and we were planning on rolling out this big national college media company with a magazine and other stuff that we were going to be doing. Well, like many .coms of that era, the company went out of business. It was just, we hit the .com bubble and it burst. And now I was out of a job and needing to find something to do. And I noticed that the Press Telegram had a new publication that was called U, which was like for university. And I thought, okay, well, they're doing something that's kind of in my wheelhouse. I just had a college media marketing company. I'll see if they might need some help. So I reached out to Ian Lamont, who was the publisher at the Press Telegram at the time, and said, hey, if there's anything you need, I can probably help you out here. He said, well, we really don't need help on you, but we are starting a magazine division that we need somebody to head up, and we're going to do specialty magazines and community magazines. Would you be interested? And I needed a job and sounded great. So I said, sure, I'd love to do that. So I get hired, and I get to the Press Telegram, and my first day, they pull me in for a meeting with the advertising director and Ian, the publisher, and they say, well, here's what we're thinking. We're thinking that the first thing you're going to do is start this magazine called Lakewood, for Lakewood, a monthly magazine for Lakewood. Now, nothing against the community of Lakewood, but I almost fell out of my chair. I was like, I did not get hired at the Press Telegram to start a community magazine for Lakewood. I was almost ready to quit on the spot. And I think they could tell that I was not very inspired by their idea. And they said, well, what would you like to do? And I said, well, San Pedro would be a pretty good place for a monthly magazine. What about San Pedro? So they said, well, look, if you think a magazine can work in San Pedro, go out and do the research. Find out from the community if they could sustain a monthly magazine, if the businesses would be able to buy the ads to make it a go. So I went out to do my research, and I met with a bunch of people in town to ask them if they felt like, this could happen. And every single person I went to said, no, we don't think the businesses will support something like this. There's just not enough advertising dollars in this community to support a monthly magazine. Others have tried and they haven't been successful. So I went back to the Press Telegram. I had my meeting, and they asked me, and they go, what did you find out? I said, I found out that people think it's going to go great. It's going to be like so wildly successful that they just can't wait for me to get started. And they're like, really? They're that excited about it? I go, I can't believe how excited people were for this magazine. We got to do San Pedro. So essentially, I put myself on the line there because I knew that if this thing didn't succeed, I'd end up getting fired. Or if not fired, laid off, or maybe they'd make me go do Lakewood, which I really didn't want to do. Again, all apologies to the people of Lakewood. And I go out, and lo and behold, everybody who told me it couldn't work was wrong. It really did. Everything I told those guys, obviously not being truthful, turned out to be truthful. I had really great support. People were so excited. People were so appreciative. People would literally stop me in the street who I didn't know and thank me for starting this magazine, because there had not been there had been one other publication that was an alternative weekly in the community. Other than that, there hadn't been anything since the days of the News Pilot. So people were very excited. Well, anyways, cut to 3 years later, and I now was kind of getting burnt out at the Press Telegram, to be very honest. I felt like I wanted to do more and be this division head of a magazine division and do all the things that they talked about, and they were not in a growth mode at the time. They were sort of cutting budgets, and so any growth opportunities were not there, and I decided it was time for me to move on. But I didn't want the magazine to die. I really wanted this thing to continue, so I went to the new publisher, a guy named Mark Stevens, said, Mark, listen, I'm probably going to move on, but I really want to keep San Pedro magazine going. What do you think? And he says, look, if you can find a replacement, let's do it. Why would we throw that revenue away? So I ended up going on a search of different folks to hire my replacement. And there's a guy named Josh Stecker who came in, and he was clearly the guy who should get the job. So we hired Josh, and I stuck around for another 3 months to train him and sort of transition so that I would, teach him the ropes and he could take the magazine and run with it after I left. And so after I left, he continued to operate San Pedro magazine. And sure enough, as I could probably see the writing on the wall when I was at the Press Telegram, a couple years later, they decided they were going to fold the magazine, and that would be the end of it. And Josh at the time was now going to be out of a job, but worse than that, this monthly magazine that our community loved so much was going to die with him being, let go. And so instead of letting it go, he basically very quickly scrambled together some resources and closed San Pedro magazine, and a month or two later reopened it as San Pedro Today, which is still in operation to this day. And I'm really, really thankful to Josh for doing that, because it's just so wonderful that our community does have this monthly magazine. And I think he's done a wonderful job. And it's not an easy business by anybody who's done it, they can tell you. But I'm really proud to have been the person who first started it, but I'm equally proud of him for what he's done to keep it going, and many, many, many years longer than, than I was doing it.